children were blocking cars in the road, stealing things from campsites and also from the employees of the campground, breaking things, just running wild and feral. Hey friends, after 2 years of living on the road full-time in an RV, I have stayed next to all sorts of people, and if you're out there in your RV, you're going to be staying next to them too. In today's episode, I'd like to talk about the 10 kinds of people you'll camp next to at RV parks. The first kind of camper is the ghost camper. Picture this. You're at the RV park, there's a camper there, you see the RV, but you never see who is actually staying in it. It's a total mystery who these people are and what they're doing. You know, for the most part, I don't mind the ghost campers. Sure, it's a little spooky. Sure, you kind of wonder what's going on, but I'll tell you, in the realm of RV park neighbors, they're probably your best ones. Actually, it reminds me of something that I was told. So Justin and I stayed at this one RV park for about 6 months when we were house hunting. And it reminds me of something that one of the employees told me as I was checking out. I was kind of settling up. She was helping me prorate some of my stay. They were actually very lovely and worked with us with everything. Anyway, I said to her, you know, it's been really great. I've had a really great time staying here. And she said, you know, it's mutual. And I was like, oh, that's really sweet. Why do you say that? And she said, it's because I barely knew you were here. She's like, I do not know you by name. You never caused any problems. You were not complaining or harassing other people. There were not complaints about you. So sometimes it's better to blend right in. Ghost campers, I salute you. The next kind of RV park neighbor is the mechanic. You know what I'm talking about. The mechanic is out there clanging, using their tools, always working on their RV. Here's the thing. I sort of get it. So Justin and I are both DIY types. He's very handy. I'm a good assistant. And when you're on the road for 2 years, things break. RVs need maintenance, especially a motorhome like we have. Motorhome's different. Something like doing oil changes is so easy when you have a sticks and bricks, but can be so difficult when you're living in RV parks. Because even though it is really easy to change the oil on an RV, I mean, it's way easier than a car, they also don't want to deal with having people do it and being lazy, distracted, bad at it, and having oil all over their RV spots. And I get it. It's a rule for a reason at nearly all RV parks. Similarly, other types of maintenance are typically banned, and it's a bummer. I found if it's something very minor, not messy, not terribly loud, and you can do it really fast, if you can be done with it by the time somebody would complain, you're probably really good. But there are people out there who haven't got the memo and who will be Tommy knocking and clicky clacking and bang-a-langing all night long. And not in a fun way. So maybe you got Red Green over there and he's, you know, doing some work on the RV. Oh my Godzilla. Godzilla, protect and save me. The third category of RV park neighbor is Cousin Eddie. Now, if you're a fan of the National Lampoon Christmas movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, full. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But essentially, the Cousin Eddie is your down-home country guy. And it's not just about being salt of the earth, being rural, because after all, we both grew up in the country, Justin and I. I grew up in rural Maine, he grew up in the swampy area in Michigan, and I'll tell you, we did not grow up in fancy environments. That's not what this is about. This is about the lack of consideration. If you remember in the movie, Cousin Eddie is taking his sewer hose and dumping it into the drain, the city water, where storm water is supposed to go. He's overstaying his welcome at his family's house. He's rough around the edges and he's also very rude. And you will definitely find this at RV parks, people who are blasting their music, who have their kids running all over the place. We actually had one RV park where children were blocking cars in the road, stealing things from campsites and also from the employees of the campground, breaking things, just running wild and feral. The same family had a dog that was chained out and unattended in coyote country. Like, there was lots of things going. So that's what I'm talking about with the Cousin Eddie. Not only are they salt of the earth and down home, which honestly, good traits, they are inconsiderate, loud, rude, causing a disturbance. Cousin Eddie. The next group is your friendly retirees. So I think when I got on the road full-time RVing, there was this perception by me and by everybody who knew me that pretty much What you'd be seeing on the road would be traditional retirement age people. And I'll tell you, you see a lot of them. There's more people who are traditionally retired that are full-time RVers than you see in like a regular neighborhood or something. But obviously from this list, they are not the only kinds of park neighbors you have. And it's really interesting because they're such a wide and varied group. Some of the most awesome, coolest neighbors I had were retirement age. That said, some of the rudest, nastiest neighbors I had were not cousin Eddies, but retirees. And I do think a lot of it is based on your social skills and your comfort in being around other people. So for us, when we hit the road to go full time, we were pretty psyched because at the time we were moving from a big city apartment in the inner ring of Dallas where we had, attached walls and we had our space in our apartment, but we didn't even have any room in between to speak of. So contrast that with somebody like, for example, my mother would be a great example. She has a 2,000 square foot house and a couple of acres of land, and she knows who the neighbors are, but there's trees and stuff, like they're not in her face. I remember sometimes my mom even would have problems. We would go to like hibachi restaurants. So that's like the Japanese steakhouse with the grill where they do the tricks and the oil and everything. Anyway, a lot of times there's really big party tables. So they're set up so you can have 10, 15, 20 people, depending on the restaurant. So we went there with, I think, like 6 or 8 people. So half of the restaurant table was empty. And I remember they seated another party at our big table, and my mother was livid. She had a hard time enjoying the meal. She was glaring at the other party. She did not like it. And so I think if you're not comfortable being around strangers and having other people in your space, that it's going to be difficult. And I think it really depends on what kind of life you lived before you retired, how much you like full-time RVing, how comfortable you are with it, and frankly, how rude or polite you are. Because I'll tell you, I also had some wonderful neighbors who were just like chatty and sweet and lovely and interesting that were retirement age. They were a little lonely because it can be tough, especially if you're in a traveling phase, if you're not in kind of a snowbird community setting that a lot of the retirees end up in. If you're one of these go, 55 plus full-time retirees, it can be a big adjustment, not knowing your neighbors or not having your kids and your community around you. So, but yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag there. They've been really great and really awful, especially if they've gotten into full-timing, they've sold all their possessions, they don't like it, they don't know what to do, and they feel trapped. They can be very, very nasty. I'll just put it that way. We had one situation where we had this park where all they had were buddy sites. This was just how the park worked. It's actually the lowest rated campground we ever stayed at. I'll link to it below, but we had this table that was in between our sites, and they basically pushed it all the way over so that they could park their car in this way that they wanted to, and it basically made it so we had no lawn, and they were very aggressive and it just was a very unpleasant experience for us. The next group is your remote workers, and that's me. Hey, hi, I'm the problem, it's me. No, my husband Justin and I were full-time remote workers. He works with computers. I run my own business. So for us, it was kind of a no-brainer. We decided we were gonna figure out the next place we wanted to live. We got an RV, we're traveling around, having a trip of a lifetime and figuring out where we wanted to either buy land and build a house or buy a house. And we did that. We found where we wanted to go. A lot of the full-timers are dinks like us, dual income, no kids, but not all of them are. Some of them have a bunch of kids. We met other remote workers on the road, some really cool ones that we hung out with actually up in Washington State. A couple, he was a programmer, he was in computers, and she was a professional photographer. They were super cool. Oh my gosh, they were cooler than us.
Well, it's not like it's hard.
I've also seen families that have kids that the kids travel with them as well, and they're homeschooled and all that. Okay, so the next category we're kind of in, but not really. It's kind of a little step off from us. That's the van lifers and the RV influencers. Technically we have a YouTube channel, but it's pretty small, Thank you for showing up, by the way. If you're here, we're glad you're here. But it's not our main source of income. It's not the reason we took the trip. We were taking the trip anyway, and I already did social media for my business, and it just made sense for me to document it for our family. And while I was documenting it for our family, I already post online for my businesses. And so it just made sense to also post on YouTube. So that's what we've been doing here. There's some people where that's like the whole thing, and that's how they pay for the trip, and that's their primary job, is traveling around in the van or the RV, documenting it and making money off that, and bless them. And I found that some of these are really big families. Family content on YouTube and TikTok and other places tend to do really, really well all by itself. So if you add something kind of trendy like van life, RV life, which has gone up in popularity, and you add family vlogging content, pa-chow, pa-chow, boy howdy, people are into that. Now, there is a dark side to that. I hadn't really thought about it much lately. There's been some other bigger YouTubers that have done some exposés on it, but I did do an episode recently about a teenager that grew up in a van and had some stuff to say about it. And so I'll link that below as well if you're interested in that. But there's a dark side to that too, because the kids can't necessarily consent, and it is a different way to grow up. But you know, I didn't grow up that way. I can't really comment meaningfully. All I can do is boost the words of somebody who did. So I'll link that below. But you will see them out in the wild, and you will recognize them by the selfie sticks, the talking heads they do a lot. Also, a lot of them have branding and stuff on their vehicles, which is interesting. We looked into that, and it voided some of our insurance on our RV to do that. So we did not do that. I'm not sure if they're aware that that affects their insurance coverage. Now, maybe they don't care. Maybe the exposure was more worth it to them than the potential risk of not having their possessions covered. If anything caught on fire, they had an accident. But we were just like, nah, it's fine. There are other ways to get exposure. We'll take our risks with the algorithm and the organic sharing en masse online in the cloud. We don't need to have it on the bus because we want our stuff covered if anything happens. The next category is the weekenders, your weekend warriors, they're sometimes called, the people who are on vacation. So not everybody that's at the campground is living there, or at least living there for the week and then living somewhere else. Not everybody is a full-timer. In fact, a lot of them aren't. I will say that that was mostly a phenomenon during the summer months. When you're summering in the RV, you're going to run into so many people that are just there for the weekend, that are just there for like a quick getaway, and that is wonderful. I will say there are some downsides because they are in vacation mentality, they're on that island time, they don't have to get up in the morning. So even if it's the middle of the week, like they've taken like a whole week to go away and stuff, they will be like blasting music late. They tend to be like your partiers, so they're more likely to drink or to smoke or to cause a kerfuffle, to play the music loud. And even considerate weekenders, this is something we found, they do campfires a lot more often. So this isn't a big deal, but Justin especially will find that camp smoke is okay every once in a while, but it will set off his asthma sometimes, especially if there's a whole bunch of campfires going on at once, which during the summer there often is. And so we ended up getting a small purifier unit for the RV. We needed it anyway. When we were in the Pacific Northwest, there were some forest fires out there. We had some warnings when we were up in Seattle one summer. It's something to bear in mind, you know, the campfire smoke, because it can really get in your throat. And like I said, some people have asthma concerns with it. And that brings me to one of my favorite kinds of RV park neighbors, and those are the solo female nomads. I love them, ladies that are traveling by themselves. Now, what's interesting about them is you won't always spot them, and that's by design. Should it be this way? Probably not, but being a woman alone is kind of a safety concern. I hate this personally, but ne'er-do-wells, criminals, shady types, they will often target women who are alone. So there are a lot of tricks for not appearing alone. I know a lot of solo female nomads will put out a pair of boots to kind of make it appear like there's a man there. That's one of the tricks. There's a bunch of other things. And a lot of times the solo female nomads will be a lot like the ghost campers. So you don't really see them that much. They're in and out really quick. I guess technically I've been a solo female nomad as well. I actually did a video of it. There was one time that Justin got sent to India for his job, for work. He flew to India while I was in the RV, and I was all alone camping by myself while he was gone. I made the most of it. I worked a lot, but I was pretty much the ghost camper. I kept to myself. So I didn't want anybody knowing I was alone, you know? So I think there's an element of that as well. But you know, when I see one, I'm always like, yes, yes. They're the real badasses. Massive respect. Love you. Some of my favorite YouTube channels are solo female nomads because it's really inspirational. It's really cool. All right, and the final type of neighbor you'll find at an RV park He's not my favorite. It's a little something called the campground know-it-all. Oh boy. Now, these guys, not invisible. You actually have to go out of your way to avoid them. These are the people that when you're pulling in your RV, not only do they pull up the chair to watch you do it, they're giving you unsolicited advice, often wrong, about how to pull in, what to do. Nobody asked them. Oh my gosh. You know, I get where people are coming from, but boy, that's distracting when they do that. There are also ones, we had neighbors that would come up. They would ask Justin about our setup. They would ask him about, you know, what he did with this or that, because we had pretty cool setup, some of the stuff that we did. And they come over and ask, you know, oh, how do you like that? And they would start giving advice that Justin wasn't asking for. I think because they were the kind of person that didn't like to take advice, but they had asked Justin for advice. So they're like, okay, I have taken advice from Justin that I asked for. Now I must give him all kinds of advice, which it sounds pretty good. And it would have been good if it had been good advice or anything Justin cared about. And poor Justin, he's so sweet. I would watch him not want to be rude. And this guy just talked at him and talked at him. It was like an hour. I mean, the guy wasn't super rude. He was like talking down to us a little bit. But, you know, it could have been worse. But the campground know-it-all. Bless your heart. Bless your heart. You're doing your best. So it's a balance, though. I get it. Because, like, it's good to be friendly, good to socialize. But where is the line, right? Yeah. So those are the 10 types of RV park neighbors I've seen. Did I miss any? Let me know. Anyway, it's been great talking to you as always. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you in the next video. And maybe at the RV park.